Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. At last month's town meetings in communities all across the state, volunteers were elected to help provide the key services and execute the vital functions of our local governments. It's important to emphasize that many of the functions and services of our local governments are provided by elected volunteers. They are community members who serve on our select boards and school boards or work as a town lister or justice of the peace. To help citizens succeed in their elected positions, many Vermont towns rely on the annual Town Officers Education Conferences. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the conference series, which is presented by the University of Vermont Extension. To learn more about the conferences and the work of our local governments, I'm joined by three guests this afternoon. Collectively, they represent several decades of municipal government service and knowledge, and they are each longtime presenters at the Town Officers Education Conferences. Next to me is John Cushing. John spent 45 years as town clerk in Milton before his retirement in March. And across the table, we're joined by Susan Clark, who is the town moderator in Middlesex and one of Vermont's foremost experts on town meeting. And last but not least is Lee Crone. Lee served nearly 25 years in municipal government in the town of Manchester. He is now a senior planner with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. Well, thank you all for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
And so, Susan, this is the 70th year of the Town Officer Education Conferences. Why were they started, and what are some of the points of history along the way?
Yeah, well, they were actually started in 1938, so before World War II, but this is the 70th consecutive year because they took some years off, during the war. And I think that there was a need for consistency in things like town reports, financial reporting, questions like that. And so it's a way for town officials who change all the time to stay up to date and really stay connected with each other as well.
Mm-hmm. And John, how about for you?
I'm the same reason. Definitely for educational purposes, and because a lot of times you were elected or you were appointed to a particular office, and you knew nothing. You walked into the room and what do I do? And I think that was the main reason, is to try to bring all of the town offices together to be able to do the jobs they need to do.
I think there's a tradition in Vermont that sometimes we think of positions as being political, or I'm running for office because I want power or something like that. Usually in Vermont we have it's my turn. Somebody has to do this work. It's important work. It's our work, but we need to be trained.
That's a very good point, because I know in the early history records, at least in Milton, it was interesting to see that someone would be a treasurer, and then maybe for 2 or 3 years it'd be a different person, and then the next thing they would come back. And I finally did come to that conclusion, that that's exactly why they did that, is because they felt that they were obligated to carry on the duties of the municipality.
The town clerk or select board members are highly visible positions, but who are some of the other town officers, John, that benefit from the conferences?
Definitely the listers, planning people, select boards. Those would be the primary ones, because those are those three people: the select board, the clerk, the treasurer, and the assessors work very, very closely together. They have to, because the jobs that they need to perform are tied independently. They do their job independently, but they're tied together.
And how about for you, Lee?
Yeah, there's such a constellation of town officers who really manage the affairs of our communities. You have planning commissions, development review boards, conservation commissions, tree committees, those in the fire service. I mean, it's really astounding the array of services provided by all of these volunteers. And I was chair of a planning commission in Putney many years back, and you sign up for the job and you kind of launch into it. And these conferences are so helpful in helping people learn the jobs, make relationships between each other, learn from each other, and really learn the ropes of the job.
And so, John, some of these positions are held by municipal staff, others by volunteers. Why is the training helpful every year, and what kinds of things change that people would need to know about?
Well, for an example, a lot of times they themselves change, so consequently the history that the previous clerk or treasurer or whatever, that's gone. And hopefully they're willing to work to have that happen, but sometimes that doesn't. But the main thing is that you take, for an example, one that I think is the most important, and that is our land records. The land records are the most important documents that we house in local government. And I don't believe a lot of people realize how important they are.
Yeah.
But the fact is that if I, as the clerk, don't handle those and do those the way that they need to be done, then we can have some very serious issues, and the people can. In fact, in fact, they did. We had a fire in Winooski where they went several months without being able to do title work because the records had to be cleaned and prepared again. And so that, to me, is one of the issues that is an issue. Same thing with the treasurer's office, with the select board. You need to know what your responsibilities are, and a lot of it's in the Vermont statutes. But then again, you got to learn for sure if that's what you're carrying out the duties the way that you think that the statutes are.
Well, Across the Fence spoke with some attendees of the previous conferences. Change was an important theme.
Very important to attend these seminars because legislature, everything that we do is governed by the legislature. And almost every year they make changes. And if you don't go to these seminars and understand how to do things from them, you get behind and you're not doing your work right. And if you attend the seminars, if you have questions, you're able to ask and get answers. And if you don't go to these sessions, you lose.
I have a degree in business and political science and soon a master's in public administration, but all of those classes and experiences don't really prepare you for actually governing, so to speak. That's kind of a nuance in and of itself. So it's something you have to kind of learn as you go and also but find opportunities for personal and professional development. I really feel like it's a personal responsibility to continue to learn and develop, and I don't think that happens naturally just by serving. I think you have to seek other opportunities to educate yourself to become a better legislator, a better person in government.
One of the big changes taking place in communities across Vermont is the siting of solar facilities, and Susan, that's got to be a huge issue for Town Lister.
Yeah, I imagine it is. You probably know something about that, Lee.
Yeah, it really, again, like so many of these issues we deal with today, transcends many different arenas. It's a land use planning issue, it's a local control, state control debate, it relates to listers and how do they handle these things. It's a lot like stormwater. It's not just a lake water quality issue, it's an issue for highway foremen and how we handle roads, it's an issue for land use planning and where and how we develop land. Can emergency services get there? How do we manage the sediment and the water quality? And so many of these issues are much more complicated than they used to be.
And interrelated, more interrelated than they used to be, which is why it's so great to have a conference that isn't just for select board members or just for town clerks, so they can interact.
Well, let's take a moment to highlight the upcoming schedule of the conferences. There are 2 town officer education conferences remaining in April. The conference on April 22nd will take place at the Lake Maury Inn in Fairleigh, and the April 29th conference will be at the Killington Grand Resort Hotel. For more information on the conferences, you can call the toll-free number on your screen. It's 1-800-281-6977, or you can check the website, go to uvm.edu/TOEC. Well, many of the issues facing our town span multiple areas of responsibility. Things like stormwater management we were just talking about. Local roads and natural resources are at the core of our communities and the future. Lee, can you tell us a little bit about the issues like these and planning for the future?
Sure. In terms of natural resources, as you note, there are several workshops in these TOEC conference this year on those issues. Again, they span the array from land use planning and how do communities want to develop, where should things go, where should they not go. We've got wetlands and natural resource habitat issues. Conservation commissions may have an interest in those things. Some towns have community forests that there may be a tree committee that manages. And then it ties into state issues of land use as well, and how does Act 250 interrelate with local planning. And then gets back into all these other issues of land records and valuation of land, and really trying to figure out how our communities should grow and what we want them to look like in the future.
Well, it sounds like things are a lot more complex than they were a couple of generations ago anyway.
And as Susan noted, interrelated, and that's a key piece of why these workshops are so helpful, because somebody who has a primary responsibility in one arena might go to a workshop that was designed for someone else because they want to learn another dimension of their responsibility.
Is it safe to say that it's these people's responsibility, whether you're elected or a volunteer or a paid person, to really be expected to continue learning and to continue to work together?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably the most important thing is that, and communication amongst ourselves, because if I'm doing one thing and somebody else is doing something else, it can be non-productive. And so I think that's a big key and I think you learn that from the conferences as well, is working together. And the other thing today is transparency of government. This isn't we're the officers, but that's not our business. It's the people's business that we're performing, and you need to try to do it right. And I think that's a very important part.
Absolutely. That's a really good point that you make. And another realm that I'm working in now is emergency management. And that's something that really is almost an umbrella for all of these issues. It's not just about responding to the fire, it's thinking about hazards, whether they're natural or man-made, and how can we plan our communities to minimize risk and maximize ability to be resilient, and how do we respond to things that happen.
John, talk a little bit about the role of the town clerk.
Town clerk primarily is the recorder of documents, minutes, land records, as I mentioned, and a lot of it is also communicating with the people. I think that's the most important part of the clerk's office, is when I went to work, I could be sure that every day I was going to help someone, because someone's going to come and ask a question about something that they had an issue with, and hopefully we would be able to give them the right answer. That was very, very important, and I think it helps the people know that they can come and talk to their local government. I mean, you stop and you think about that. What other government can you go and talk to the person that's standing there at the counter? And that's key. But the other thing is to record those documents, and we've changed so much. We hand typed the documents into the deeds. Today, they're scanned and it's computerized. Our records are all scanned back 40 plus years, and they can search this all on the computers, and that's a big thing. And primarily, that's the clerk's duties, to record so that the people can come and see what we did.
And so when reporters have a question, the first one they call is the town clerk.
Exactly. Yes.
So in a really important sense, I think the town clerk is like the gateway of democracy, or the gatekeeper or the ambassador, a real face that makes sure that government is really a we and not a they. It's our government, it's our town, our community.
We've got a couple minutes left, Susan. Maybe you could talk a little bit about one of the conferences. It's called Great Meetings, Making the Most of Time, People, and Energy. It's a workshop that you lead. What tips do you have?
Yeah, well, we do lots of different, over the years, I've done lots of different ways to look at how do we interact with people and with each other. And this one in particular, how to have a great meeting. One of the key questions really is, where does the power lie in the meeting? That's an important one, so that when you're inviting people to come together, is this an informational meeting, or is this a meeting where you're actually going to ask for collaboration, or is this a decision-making meeting where they are asked to decide? And if you communicate that ahead of time, it alleviates a lot of the problems because if somebody comes to a meeting thinking that it's a decision-making meeting and then they get talked at the whole time, that's a negative. But on the other hand, if they came expecting to learn, and in fact it's a public hearing where the public officials aren't even allowed to talk, they're only allowed to listen, that sets up a different expectation as well. So good communication ahead of time is important.
Well, we're going to highlight the 2015 Town Officer Education Conferences one last time. April 22nd conference will be at the Lake Maury Inn in Fairleigh, and the April 29th conference is slated for the Killington Grand Resort Hotel. For more information, you can call the toll-free number on the screen or the website. I want to thank you all for coming in and talking about this today. It's fascinating stuff, I think.
I think it is too.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.